A little sound might be nice, right? Hello and welcome to another weekly edition of the Dom Lorenzo Scupoli Self-Exorcism Formation. And I'm your host, Sister Farah Rose, OFS. Give us a like if you happen to like this video after you watch it, and a thumbs up and subscribe if you can. We're about to get ready and get started on this week, which is going to be a really tough one because we all are guilty of doing this. This week, we're going to focus on how to love our neighbor with prudence. So sit back. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm hoping you're going to get a lot out of this week. Once again, Sister Farah, your host here at Source of St. Michael Network, which is all about self-exorcism, discovering and getting rid of all those things in the closet that no longer serve us or serve God first and foremost. And as always, we would like you to sit back and relax and prepare yourself to dig a little deeper, go a little deeper, understand some of the reasons that we do things are not always serving us nor serving God first, as I say. This is the spiritual combat. As you can see on the screen, my son put it up for me so that I don't have to wave it in your face every time. That way you have an idea what we're talking about. If you are new, we began at the beginning of this book over 66 chapters ago, and each week has specific exercises dedicated to helping you, whatever level of spirituality you're at, whether you've been baptized or not, whether you are a diehard, praying, worshiping, God-loving person, or you're completely new to understanding the depths and level of prayer that you can achieve with some peace. So, as we get ready to get going into this chapter, which is the Treatise on Peace of Soul, we're into chapter 6. And we're going to pray ourselves in. So put me on pause if you need to. Grab your tea, grab your cocoa, grab some popcorn, or just a piece of paper and sit back and listen as we go into this chapter. Give us a like if you can. In nomine Patri et Filio et Spiritus Sancto, sic erat in principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Sancte Michael Arcangele, defende nos in prelio. Contra nequitiam et insidiis diaboli est presidium, imperire de Deus supplicis te pecamur tuque. Princips maletia, celesti satana maliosque, spiritus malignos, qui et perditionem animarum pervegantur in mundo divina virtute in infernam detrude. Amen. Our study prayer by St. Thomas Aquinas. Concede mihi misericors Deus, qui tibi placita, sudar tendere, consuspicere, prudenter investigare, vericiter agnoscere, et perfecte ad implere, ad laudem et gloriam nominis tui. Amen. In English, grant me grace, O merciful God, to desire ardently all that is pleasing to thee, to examine it prudently, to acknowledge it truthfully, to accomplish it perfectly, for the praise and glory of thy name. Amen. The Spiritual Combat and a Treatise on Peace of Soul. Second part of the book, the Treatise on Peace of Soul, chapter 6. The necessity of our love of neighbor being guided by prudence, that serenity of soul be not disturbed. God does not dwell in a soul which he does not first inflame with a love of him and charity for others. For Christ himself said he came to set the world on fire. Although our love of God must have no bounds, our charity for our neighbor must have its limits. We cannot love our God too much, but if our love for others is not guided by prudent moderation, we may destroy ourselves in seeking to save others. Let us, therefore, love our neighbor in a manner that will not be deleterious to our own souls. This is best accomplished by doing nothing with the sole aim of setting them a good example, lest in saving them we lose ourselves. Rather, our actions should be performed with great simplicity and sanctity, with the sole aim of pleasing God in humble acknowledgement of the limited value of our good works to ourselves and others. We are not expected to be so zealous for the salvation of others as to destroy the peace of our own souls. We may ardently desire their illumination when God is pleased that we do so, but we must not wait for a divine communication, nor vainly imagine that it is to be acquired by our exaggerated solicitude and imprudent zeal. Let us seek peace and repose of a holy solitude, for such is the will of God, as it binds us closer to Him, and let us remain recollected and undisturbed until the Lord of the vineyard requires our services. God will clothe us with Himself when He finds us divested of all earthly care and solicitude. When we have forgotten ourselves, God will not forget us. Peace will reign in our hearts, and divine love will grant us an undisturbed facility of action, as well as moderation and temperance in all that we do. Thus, every action of our lives shall be performed in the repose of a heaven-sent peace, in which even silence is eloquent. And to be free of earthly care in order to offer ourselves to the service of the Master is to act in accordance with the will of Christ. For it is His divine goodness that must work in us and with us, requiring no more of us than sufficient humility to present to Him a soul that has but one desire, and this desire is that God's will be accomplished in us in the most perfect possible manner. Wow. Okay, where do we start? The interesting thing about this chapter, I'm sure by now, especially those of you that have followed this whole series for so long, you're seeing yourself front and center. How many times have we thrown ourselves right in front of that bus just to try and grab somebody, and they walk on by? Didn't even see anything we did, didn't feel anything we felt, nothing. How many times have we laid it all bare for somebody just to try and help them in any way, shape, or form? And I think of a recent story told to me by someone who's so zealous and such a loving Christian person that they basically, on the way home, saw a homeless person struggling. Thought, you know what? I'm going to help this person, give this person a ride, brought the person home. And sadly, watching TV, both exhausted from the heat and work, the homeless person stabbed my friend. This is not what God wants. This is not prudence. This is the cautionary thing that we must do as Christians. Step back. We are not God. We cannot play God. We must wait in temperance and patience for that moment when God can use us, when we can step into that moment. And this chapter is telling us When we are quiet and put off the cares of this world, God hears the desires of our hearts and our minds to zealously help another, to heal another. He wants to be able to use us. However, when we put our hands all over what we think we're going to do, God always takes his hands off and says, "Oh, you can do better than me. All right, I'm gonna watch this and let you tell me how that worked for you." This is the danger. What happened to my friend is just one instance. This is so common these days, and especially as most of you that have followed me know that I work in deliverance and exorcism. I work, in other words, I serve. I don't work because I love it. I love helping people. And I had to learn very early on that it was not for me to think that I was so strong or I was so powerful. And the funny thing is, my mother has always told me ever since I was a little girl, all I've ever done is save things and get bit and get hurt and get stolen from and get walked on. I don't regret any of it. I do regret not listening to God and not having the prudence to know when I am giving too much, when I am trying to save too much. And this puts it right in our faces. We must step back in solitude to discern. We cannot make a snap judgment. How many times have you thought, "Oh, I'm going to save my brother. I'm going to bail him out of jail one more time"? How many times have I heard the thing, "Well, she just can't afford another child. She's already got 3, 2 have been taken away. I gave her the money for the abortion." Please. We can't. You can't kill babies, for one. 2, we can't help people by enabling them to commit a sin or being involved with a sin ourselves. This is prudence. This is real love. And this is the hard thing to accept. We are not loving someone when we're enabling them in their sin, in their misery, in their vice. We're not loving them. We are loving them when we set those parameters, when we set those limits and say, "I will help you pay your rent if you stay sober." Not for a day or two. Stay sober and show me. Show me that this is, I want to help you. I want to support you. I can't save you. God can. I think that is the biggest thing that all of us need to take a look in the mirror. We are not God. And I cannot tell you how many times that I've gone into an AA meeting with somebody, or I've gone into therapy with somebody, and the therapist will turn around and look at me and say, "Since when did God die and give you the scepter?" And I'm like, what? And I found myself again in the role thinking that I could help this person by what I was doing and what I was saying and what I was encountering and how I could help them and how I had all the tools. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. We must love our neighbor, our family, our brothers, our mothers, our sisters within limits, with prudence, with temperance, so we do not lose our peace. It is so easy to believe that we know better, we can help them better, we can see their problems better. God sees all and knows all, and we must remember that. So, for this week's examination and practice, we're going to look at those people that we've tried to save. We're going to look at those situations where we've tried to love our brother, our father, our mother, our sister, our husband, our spouse, our children. How many times do we step in and try and swoop in and save the day? I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to pay that and I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to save you from yourself. And it doesn't happen. It doesn't work. And you're like, what did I do wrong? I did everything. What happened? God, please help me. That should have been first instead of last. All right, level 1, I'd like you to pull out your journals. And as always, level 1, level 2, you guys can interchange if you like, because the two different levels, one's a little bit easier, two's a little bit more difficult. So for level 1, in your journal, I'd like you to open up and I'd like you to make a list. 2, 3, I'm sure we can all think of a number of instances, a number of people that have either come into our lives, whether it was a mother, whether it was a son, whether it was, maybe it was somebody you went to school with. Maybe it's your child that you cannot say no to. Guilty. Those people that we love the most, that we think we can help the most, are usually the ones that we fall the hardest. So level 1, I'd like you to make a list of at least 3 or 4 people that are your neighbors, your family, your friends, that you can remember that you went out on a limb. You did not use prudence. You may have gone into debt. You may have used your word to get a job for somebody. And then you had to pick up the pieces. So I'd like you to list these, all right? Then when you have listed them, each next to each one, I want you to forgive yourself. Jesus forgives you, and I forgive myself too. You are not the cause and the blame of saving someone else that refuses to save themselves. And this goes to those of you that I know have spoken to me about suicide. You are not to blame. You never were. Once you forgive yourself, I want you to pray every single night. Jesus, release me. Jesus, release me. Just something simple like that. Jesus, release me. That way, as you meditate, as you pray on what you've done without knowing, that Jesus releases you from your thoughts of thinking that you were in control. Level 2, we're going to do something similar. Except, I know if you've worked as hard as some of you are telling me you have, and thank you so much, please leave a comment and a like if you can, and suggestions. I love it. I love all the new people that are sitting there saying, yes, this is great, this is wonderful, and thank you, Patreon, my new Patreon subscriber. I want every single person that has been called to listen right now. I want you to just be at peace. Know that God's already taken care of all this stuff. And hopefully, if something in this chapter is calling to you, hopefully I'm going to help you illuminate it a little bit. So level 2, we're going to look at a list as well. We're going to look at both neighbors and relatives. And what I want you to do is I want you to do 2 columns. All right? And if you haven't found yourself saving somebody, you are in the rarity, okay? And if you haven't saved somebody, I'll come up with something for you in a minute. Just give me a minute. So on one column, I want you to do family, all right? On the other column, I want you to do friends and neighbors, coworkers, etc., etc. And I'd like you to come up with at least 2 examples. Like if I were to think of an example, I'd say my son and I'd say my sister, okay? Those are the 2 that I really, went out, got egg on my face, yada, yada. And for, neighbors, I would say, I'm not going to name their names, but I would say, somebody I lived next to and a good friend I loved that was an alcoholic. And in thinking that you can save these people, you're going to diagram here, all right? We have the neighbors and we have the relatives, okay? And then you're going to write that little line between them. Then you're going to make a little 4 square. And you're going to put all the names in a little square. Then I'm going to have you meditate and think, of these 4 people, what did I do that led me to believe that I could save them? Like, I would think that my alcoholic friend and my sister, I helped those 2 people in the same way. So I would draw a line between that person and my sister. So I want you to find the commonalities, level 2, of the things, the physical things that you thought you could do, whether it was money, time, cash, talent, whatever it was you invested in thinking, oh, I'm going to save this person. I'm going to bring them to Christ. I'm going to bring them to joy. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I want you to draw the lines. And if all 4 of them are connected, so in other words, if you have like this little box, even better. Because after you meditate once, twice, 3 times this week on what was the commonalities, what was the common denominator, what was the common denominator that made you think that you alone could change their heart, that you alone could change the course of history, that they would find that peace and joy. Instead of being the example, we trampled. That's what I observe in myself. Once you've found the common ground in those people that you've helped in the past, I want you to look at how you can do things differently in the future. How in this chapter, Dom Scupoli exhorts us to step back and pray. And think about one person you are trying to help right now, bring them to Christ, bring them to baptism, bring them to the fullness, bring them to Latin Mass, bring them to church, bring them to anything. And I want you to come up with 5 ways you can be an example. Zip the lip. Zip the lip. No talking. 5 ways. It can be something as simple as making sure you wave at them. It can be something as simple as maybe mowing their front yard. It can be something as simple as you know what they're going through. You call them up and you don't say anything. Say, I just want you to dump on me. Because you know what? I just finished praying for you and I'm here for you. So go ahead and talk. That's using a few words, but you get the idea. I want you to come up with those ways that you can currently change your temperance and prudence to allow the blossoming peace of Christ to fill them through you in your own peace. Because that's how we are true witnesses. We're not true witnesses because we're out there banging a gong and we're jumping up and down and saying, yes, Jesus reigns, viva Cristo Rey. We're not saving any souls that way. It's the acknowledgement of another human being. It is the identification with the horror and the sorrow and letting them know we have a choice. We don't have to stay here. You can come with me, but you have to choose. Life is about choices. And your witness, the strongest witness that you have, is the joy of Christ alive in you. Never forget, the battle's already been won. Thank you so much for coming along this week. Sister Farah, once again, thanking you for joining us. God bless you all. My prayers are with you. In nomine Patri, Filii, Spiritus Sancto. Be good. Until next week, God bless. Bye now.